there's a piece of God within each of us. It's not like that we all come together and become God as one. It's that there is another force here that is assisting us.
I view God more on a personal type of level as opposed to just like force. Like God's this impersonal force and like electricity or
Right.
gravity or something. There's intelligence behind everything. It doesn't just happen randomly. It's not just, there's different laws that are there, but then who made the laws? Who thought that all up? We're of the same quality as God. So the same types of characteristics, but just in minute form.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Messages from Beyond. I'm your host, Orly Alteras. Join me as we decipher signs, synchronicity, and the language of spirit. Let's begin. I'm so excited
I'm so
really
excited
excited.
too. I think it's really good that you're doing this podcast, and I'm really happy to be on it. So you
Thank
can
you
ask me
so
any
much.
questions you want about mediumship, and I'll do my best to answer if I know the answer.
Thanks, Steve. I will say that the way I did get to know you is through, I would say, synchronicity. I don't think I've ever told you this, but or maybe I have when we first met. But when I initially was experiencing my first experiences with spirit and kind of diving more deeply into what this is and what is mediumship, I I had and at that time, I actually had the idea of creating something that's called The Messages from Beyond, which is the name of this future podcast.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and when I was scrolling on the internet to look for a teacher and to find someone who could give me some tools and guidance, I came across your website and I scrolled down and I think that on the bottom it said something like The Messages from Beyond. And for
From
me,
beyond.
yeah, or something similar. You know what? Y I don't know if that's what it actually says. Maybe you can correct me on your site, but for me, that stood out,
Uh-huh.
and that was a synchronistic moment where I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so weird. It's just weird that this is the name," and I had a gut feeling and an intuition that, "Okay, I think this is my teacher." And so I reached
Oh, well,
out.
that's really neat. I don't think you ever told me that story before, but yeah, that's great. The thing is you could go to 10 different teachers. I think everyone, even if they're horrible, there's something really good that you're always gonna learn, even if it's like what not to do. But then the more you can resonate with whoever you're working with, the better too. That type of thing too. It's really important. So some teachers might be better suited for certain students and vice versa when it comes to this.
Thank you. It's interesting what you're saying about, what resonates. I think that for me has been a big lesson in taking the information that that really connects or clicks in my soul, and then perhaps leaving the things that don't, and that's why I've did through, this journey. Um, I don't know, I'm a very big seeker of truth, and which is why this has come about as well, in finding the answers.
Uh-huh.
Um and I'm wondering, firstly, for you, when was your first initial spiritual experience where you felt that there must have been something beyond our just physical
Well,
existence?
the first time in this life that I talked to the spirit world was when I was 2 years old. So my mom's dad communicated with me, which is pretty normal. You've got little kids. So when you're really little, you're really, 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 really open. The sensitivity is there. And people, I think just in a general sense, are more in touch with their psychic ability and everything.
Mm.
So it's a good thing. As parents or adults encourage kids to be open. So it's not something to be scared of. It's something just learning how to use it. It's a natural function. Just like our
How
five
would
physical
you,
senses are natural functions.
yes, how would you recommend for a parent to actually open that up for kids? Is it just normal conversations around, oh,
Yeah,
we're
just normal
here?
conversations and everything.
Mm,
It's because the thing is they're going to have different experience. Most likely have experience like that anyway. So the more they understand it, the more they have an awareness of what it is, as opposed to being told that it's just nonsense or even worse. You could have someone who just thinks, oh my God, this demonic,
mhm.
these evil spirits, dark demonic forces. and tell kids all this stuff, or they just watch all these scary movies and they have they're totally misinformed about it.
Yeah.
'Cause it's really positive. So people in the spirit world, they're just like people here, and there's all different types. There's people who are really developed spiritually. There's people who are totally on a lower type of level and everything. And obviously, with any type of spirit communication, you want to connect with the best and the highest. It's important for there to be reverence toward God, and you really want to use it the right way as well
Yeah,
and for the right purposes. It's not just entertainment or something's done on
for
for
sure.
frivolous, stupid reasons.
Yes. What do you feel is the reason to do this kind of work in connecting with spirit? And I mean, we can go into a little bit later
Well,
into spirit guides and God, and how do you see it? What does it give us in doing so? Because we could obviously live our life just without connecting, and
yeah, people do. I mean, you could have someone who's really just really devout. They really want to become a better person. They love God. They want to grow spiritually. And they may or may not be mediumistic, but it's not something they're necessarily aware of if they are mediumistic. Because every single individual has mediumistic abilities and gets influenced by the spirit world. The extent that they're open, and they don't even necessarily have to know what's going on. They could be an atheist. They can be utilized by higher spirits to actually do good things in the world and help others. But the thing is, if someone understands how it works, how to quiet your mind, how to get your analytical mind out of the way, and how to be receptive, and how to recognize and identify when thoughts that are conveyed to you from an external source appear in your mind, how to differentiate those, right, between your own thoughts and what's actually coming. And then maybe sometimes even having to translate it's for somebody else and
right,
being able to tell it to the other person. It's a message that's coming in. So all of that, I mean, obviously it can help people in innumerable ways. It maybe just on a practical type of level. Spiritually, it can help someone. Someone could be really very religious or spiritually oriented. They're studying all the scripture. They know it all by heart. And it's all just theory. It's all just
right.
dogma.
You have to
And
experience it.
they might, maybe they're not even mechanical, but they really are genuinely intellectually, but they might lack conviction behind what they profess in a religious sense. So mediumship gives someone conviction. It's not just like blind faith. Oh, I believe in God theoretically, or I believe in an afterlife. So you can read about the afterlife or other people's experiences. Even if you got into something, let's say people's near death experiences, or they could travel out of their body, this type of thing. Or you could even read about mediumship. Well, that's great. I mean, it sort of gives you an understanding. But when you actually start doing it, that's pretty cool. I
Yeah,
mean, first you might go to mediums and they bring through people, you don't even know who it is. And then you go and you talk to your husband. Oh my gosh, yeah, that was my stepdad. And then you go to a class and you start learning and they start giving you communications for other people. Isn't that a nice thing?
it's
And they recognize
amazing.
the people you're describing. It's
Yeah,
pretty amazing. So that gives you conviction. It's not just, oh, I believe in life after death. You're
you
not your physical
experience.
body. Yeah, and we're not our bodies.
Yeah,
Biologically, every cell, every molecule changes, right? Every 7 years. But we're the personality, we're the soul. It's like your car. You have a vehicle that you might drive around. You're out in LA, so you probably drive really fast. Of course, there's always traffic jams there. So you rear end people, and you pull out your automatic weapon and threaten them so they can't have road rage, right? But in any case, you're not your car. And it could get all dented when you're bumping into other vehicles, which you wouldn't like. But you're not the vehicle, you're the driver in the vehicle. So similarly, the body, there's going to be disease. There's going to be, over a period of time, it gets worn out, it gets older, it starts to fall apart and have different problems. And eventually what happens? You have to kick the bucket.
no,
But as an eternal spirit soul, you continue.
yes,
And you have relationships with people here, and they might be really dysfunctional ones. You rear-ended their vehicle on the Hollywood Boulevard 3 months ago, and they still hate you for it 3 years later. But you might still be around that person, and you want to influence them. You want to connect with them, especially if it's your family or people you're close with
right.
and everything. So the spirit world,
You really need to find the space in order to go within. and find the quiet and not being, you know, led into the loudness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if in your own home, and if you have a little temple, a little altar or sanctuary where you can go
Yeah.
and maybe even sit in the same spot or the same chair in the same room in the same corner, it builds up an energy there, right? There's like a residue of vibration, which ends up
Oh,
being there
interesting.
over a period of time. Sometimes people also have a little altar and they have, depending on what their religious persuasion might be. But that's good though, because it helps them focus their energy and also just sort of block out all the mundane,
Right. Do you believe?
materialistic. Oh yeah, go on.
Thank Do you believe I have so many questions as you speak, but do you believe, just like you were saying, the used car or a car that gets that we can also that we have the muscle to develop the skill? Because there's one thing to really want to be able to do, let's say, to speak with spirit or with loved ones who passed or higher entities, guides. But for me as an experience, for example, it's like I've always had that inkling to feel energy or I've always known that we are eternal beings, but it wasn't until I actually experienced the feeling and the the way it came through clear audience or
Uh-huh.
that I actually realized how they communicate with us. So I wonder if for someone who's just interested in developing, if they're able to, because my aha moment was like, oh my God, why isn't everybody doing this? Like, why are
Yeah,
this
good
is
question.
cool. And so my question because I'm asking this because I wish it for everyone to experience and live life where we're able to be this sidekick, helping each other on our journey, delivering information in other ways. Kind of like what a beautiful world it would be if we were all already enlightened in this way to just this higher, it's just I don't know how to describe it, just this beautiful place of realization that there is energy around us all the time that is here to support us and help us. And so I guess the basic question is, firstly, do you believe that everyone has the ability? Is it having to do with you wanting it to be available?
For mental mediumship, which is telepathic messages that are conveyed mind to mind. So from the spirit world, those of us here in the physical, but also you're always communicating potentially telepathically with people all around you because thoughts are things. And maybe you're with your husband, you can, or one of your kids, you can read their mind and vice versa. Or even if they're at a distance, you could read their mind. You can send messages, right? Because the speed of thought is faster than the speed of light. And
Hmm.
it's subtle, but it's still solid in their things. So it's certainly helpful if someone wants to do this and they put the effort into it. It's really going to help. But everybody has this ability. But it's like learning art. I mean, I think everyone, there's some degree of creativity, and there's also just like the technical skill to do certain types of art depending on the medium. So that's requires practice, patience, perseverance, and it's very good to have be in a structured educational, environment, someone who can teach or can facilitate it, who you can learn from or apprentice from, this type of thing. Which does, even if you are born with a lot of artistic skill, you could be some Renaissance master. To be a master, I mean, they spent years apprenticing with these other masters and learning. And probably were doing it 12 hours, 15 hours a day, I would imagine. It wasn't just a hobby, like it's something they're doing once every now and then.
Which
So
makes me
mediumship's the
wonder
same
if,
way.
yes, if we were all born actually with a certain unique gift in our DNA, and I don't know, in our makeup, where I haven't become, I love to draw and I love art, but I didn't become Van Gogh and so I wonder if
Well,
given our
maybe
psychic
if you put
abilities.
energy into it, you would be. I
Right.
mean, you wouldn't be Van Gogh, you'd be you.
Right.
But if you really put a lot of energy into it and said, I'm going to be a really good artist, I'm going to, be my focus. I mean, granted, not, there's people who come in with certain skills or just propensities that may or may not be there to the same extent and everything. Not everyone is going to be a genius at certain things. Other people might just be sort of proficient at something. But yeah, if you put energy into it, you could be probably really fantastic at it. I mean, you could just probably sell really horrible work that you already do now in New York or someplace, some pretentious gallery, you get the money for it. And they'd think it was wonderful. But the real technical type of skill, yeah, you could probably do that if you put energy, don't you think?
Yes, it's yes, because I think, like, coming into this physical world, people put structure to I was thinking this morning, like, if there were 10 kids at 3 years old who wanna learn tennis, is there something special about someone who will play the game? Is that if we're all the same coming in, because 'cause we're
Well,
all
we're not really all the same because we're eternals. I mean, we're the same in the sense that we're all children of God. We're well, qualifiedly, we're the same as God, you know, right? Same quality.
Mhm.
Quantifiedly, the quantity is different. So it's like the sunlight isn't the sun,
Okay.
but it's the same quality, right? It's just minute. So in one sense, I mean, we are really significant, but in one other sense, we're really insignificant because we're so tiny and everything. But then people have these big false egos that they build up and think they're so great, and they want to lord it over the world and enjoy things separately from God. So then they always suffer. So we come back and we have these different physical bodies that we temporarily inhabit. And then we just come right back again because of our desires to enjoy things materially. So you have people who come in, and I'm sure you've come in, maybe with certain propensities and certain desires. There might be really good ones, like things you want to do. And you probably came in with some baggage too, or certain hangups or bad qualities or faults. And those things are unwanted because they cover us over. So
Yeah.
we have to work those things out. And I mean, even if someone doesn't really want to grow, of course, it's helpful if they do want to grow. Even if they don't want to grow, they're going to be put in situations where they're going to be tested. And the same situations will continually appear until they sort of learn what they need to learn from it and handle things in the right way.
So you do
With
feel that when we come to earth, when we're reborn, we do does our soul know in advance? Are we aware of the lesson we're here to learn, or is that something that is God?
We don't have a soul. We are a soul.
We are a soul,
Yeah,
yes.
we're an eternal
Yeah,
spirit soul. So,
yeah,
I mean, I do have an elbow, but I'm not an elbow.
yeah.
So, yeah, so we come here, and there's an idea of, okay, you need to do this because this is where you fell short. But then you come in here, it's sort of, that's all sort of unconscious. But then how many people really genuinely put a lot of energy into trying to grow spiritually? How many take it even seriously? And then some people, they just might go to their church or go to their temple once a week, this type of thing. They go on Saturday or whatever, Sunday if they're Christian, you know, which is great, but it's not just something you give lip service to. It's really how you live your life, your values, and all these things, and trying to reflect if you could do better, how to improve yourself and learn and grow. So the spirits around us, they are very aware of how they've messed up, and they really will try to influence us, which may or may not work too well, depending on how receptive someone is. So if they can come through a medium, and if they've got a good connection, if the medium's got good training, and ideally on the same wavelength as the spirit, it's going to be really good connection and everything. Of
Mm.
course, let's just say you're in the spirit world, you're some grandmother and you want to communicate to your granddaughter, and the medium just, you don't really like them. I don't like that guy very much. You can still come through, but it might not be the same thing as if you were mentally on the same wavelength, so to speak, which is why sometimes you're going to find perhaps certain loved ones or spirits communicate really strongly through some mediums, and the results seemingly are really better than other mediums. And so much of it has to have been on the same wavelength because we're talking about telepathic, mind to mind communication when it takes place.
Could you go into, for those who are just starting their journey, perhaps listening, into the ways in which we receive the information telepathically, but also, do you believe in that, in within that question, because this is something I heard and experienced, that our intuition is actually guided by our the guides or angels. And so when we're able to tap in, you can call it your intuition, we're actually tapping into that same place, is
Yeah,
essentially.
with telepath, our psychic senses correspond to our physical senses, don't they?
Yes.
So you can psychically smell, taste, hear, like Joan of Arc, she could hear the angel voices, this type of thing. You have clairvoyance, right? You to see.
Yeah.
And you also just have sensing or feeling, clairsentience. Of course, the hearing is called clairaudience. And then you also have something which is called claircognizance, which is just knowing. And so you just have to literally, it's like having a paragraph downloaded into your head all at once. It's like a knowing, an instantaneous
Mm.
knowing. And doesn't really require any kind of interpretation or translation on your part. Like for example, with a clairvoyant message, you might get an image and there might be different layers of meaning to that image. It can be literal, but sometimes often it's like symbolic. Right? One picture's worth 1,000 words. So you
Right.
might be shown an image of a rose. Now, that's like psychic shorthand, right? They can communicate information quickly that way. The mind receives this image. It's a rose. What does that mean? Now, it could literally mean a woman named Rose coming through from spirit. And that's how she gives you the name.
The name.
That's how you receive it. But it also sometimes it communicates romantic love that commonly, in society, as well as physical death. And sometimes they put red roses on the coffin, this type of thing. So there can be a lot of different meanings. And a medium, as part of their training, learns how to interpret things correctly. And of course, if you get an image, there's going to be a feeling that goes along with it. Many times people use this generic term, intuition. And what's intuition? Oftentimes, it's these ideas or thoughts that come into your head. You're driving home on the freeway, you're taking what is it, I-5 or something. Should have taken I-10. And you're driving up, or 101 or whatever. When you're driving up I-5 and you have this real strong idea that maybe I should turn off here and go shopping. I really need to go to Best Buy and get a new computer. So what happens? I need to get home. I just don't want to waste the time. And next thing you know, you're stuck in traffic for 4 hours. So some tractor trailer,
Yes.
smashed up. And there's no way of getting back. You're stuck there because there's cars behind you, bumper to bumper in front of
Like,
you.
if you would have taken that turn to go to
You would have
your
avoided
ends
all of
lane,
that.
you would have avoided it. Thank
Yeah, and that happened. I mean, I can think of my own lane. I'm mediumistic, where I just somehow discounted the feelings I was getting.
you.
Now, that's not to say that they won't influence you and try to help you out of things, but often when people get these ideas that come in that don't originate within their own mind, they just ignore it. They don't really, and sometimes they can't really tell the difference. So to make you be able to tell the difference, they turn up the volume, that they impress your mind very strongly so it stands out. It's a real strong feeling. I shouldn't buy this car. Yeah, and you buy it anyway, and then the wheels fall off because it was a lemon.
That's
That's
why I
how
feel like sometimes the information can come in maybe 2 times, like, you'll get the nudges, I say, like, the message from the universe, or you didn't hear it the first time. I feel like sometimes the message can come through
oh,
again,
it'll
like.
keep on coming.
Right, until
That's
you.
exactly what happens. Let's say they send it to you and you just start paying attention. They send it to you again, and you notice it, you're still just saying, "Eh." And they're not even really sure if you even noticed it, so they'll keep on sending. You might be thinking of worry and all these other different things that the thought will keep on coming in. It might take them a few hours to get it through your head till you finally notice it.
Yeah.
And probably in a lot of cases, they fail miserably because you just don't listen. You continue to drive instead of getting off the freeway to get your computer at Best Buy. And I'm not plugging Best Buy, by the way.
For me, when it all came in, I was like, "Oh my gosh." I started to become aware of my thoughts and the different thoughts I was having, and then realizing, okay, first thing, it also felt like I realized when I speak out loud or I speak to them, I'm creating also that connection, and I would have a thought and then see it come into my existence, ask for a sign, and then the sign would show up. That's when I started playing with this and realizing what synchronicities are, for example, where just like I said in the beginning, where I would saw that come up, I was like, "Oh, that's meaningful to me." I think there's something in that where when you are able to pick up on the thoughts that give you information and you follow those breadcrumbs, you're led also to the most wonderful experiences, your wishes coming true. And I just wanted to hear what your thoughts are on synchronicity or those moments where, oh my gosh, I took that turn and I then heard on the radio that there was this huge crash, right? Where you're able to
Yeah.
put the two and two together and realize that if I do listen to that internal whisper or, you know,
Yeah. Well,
whatever form it comes in,
that's good. I guess it's interesting because I think, but people have, I know myself too, there's a tendency to want to control things.
right?
We want to control things and make things happen a certain way. And that's not really good. And then there's the aspect where it's good just to be able to let go and allow things to happen. Now, there needs to be a balance because God helps those who help themselves, and we need to do our part.
Mm,
It's just like you might want to receive healing. And let's say someone had respiratory problems and they had some kind of cigarette addiction or smoking cigarettes, 4 packs a day because they're a chain smoker. And they just keep, they get, so they're getting healing for it, but then they never change, right? They never change their behavior. What's going to happen? I mean, it's going to negate any healing they're getting. So you have to know how much you need to put effort into things in one sense, but then you also have to be able to surrender and to sort of allow things to happen too. And sometimes the wisdom is knowing when to put energy into something, to what extent you put into it, and when not to. And that's the problem that people have because, again, there's a tendency to want to control things or make things happen a certain way. But we don't really see the bigger picture, too.
right.
So the higher spirits can see a much broader, from their vantage point, a much broader picture of how things are. Whereas we only see things in front of us. And so you can have a situation that seems to be a real disadvantage or not be something you want. On the other hand, when one door closes, often all these better doors open up. And there can be a lot of learning in things spiritually, and great growth can take place when seemingly horrible things happen in people's lives.
Right. Do you feel
So
that that everything is divinely guided? I mean, do you
yes,
feel like yes.
everything is divinely guided. I know you were talking about the universe gives you messages, but you're not like electricity. You're a person. You have individuality, you have personality, don't you? So it's not like you'll stop being an individual. You're getting information from individuals. It's not just some type of impersonal electrical force.
Yeah.
You can't have a loving relationship with an electrical force.
Yeah.
But you can have loving relationships with individuals with personality,
Do you feel
which is
like
what's there as a
these
propensity.
yeah, do you feel that these spirits that speak with us, are they this was a big question of mine and I'm
Uh-huh.
still going deep within. Are they aspects of myself? Because I did ask this to one of my guides. I asked, are these just aspects of myself that I'm hearing like to bring out that best part in me? Or are you
Aspects of
actual
yourself.
or are they actual separate entities? I mean, my answer that I received was that they are different, but this is something that I'm still trying to realize because sometimes I find that one certain spirit guide will come through and they're trying to help me with a certain aspect of myself.
Uh-huh.
But you believe they are actual entities that are
I'm not you, am I? I mean, we're connected. I mean, so there's oneness. I mean, if you think of sometimes people say everyone is one, we're all one. We all
right,
are one, but
right.
we're all individuals too. So there's simultaneous oneness, but then difference as well. So for example, I'm in my physical body now, but let's just say, I don't know, the asteroid hit where I'm living and that's it. I went in the spirit world and I was communicating with you. I'd still be a different person than you. I
Thank
have a
you.
different mind. I mean, we're both children of God, but we're not. It's like the rays of light. They're all
And I
different
was just thinking that as well.
and they're not the sun. So sometimes you have people have this idea that you just emerge into some type of cosmic oneness, like electricity. It's this impersonal force and that's it. And that's not really what happens. But I mean, there's a oneness. I mean, when you really open up to people in love, I mean, you can experience this real sense of bliss and connectedness with people in relationship to God, which is, that's, yeah,
Yeah.
but
So you do
you're not
believe
the
that I
same
guess
person.
Yes, there's a piece of God within each of us,
Yeah.
but God is a force that is it's not like that we all come together and become God as one. It's that there is another force here that is assisting us on our
Yeah, yeah. I view God more on a personal type of level as opposed to just like force.
yes,
Like God's this impersonal force and like electricity
right, I
or
get it.
gravity or something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's personality, there's intelligence behind everything.
Mm,
So it doesn't just happen randomly. It's not just, I mean, there's different laws that are there, but then who made the laws? Who thought that all up, right?
yeah,
So we're of the same quality as God. So the same types of characteristics, but just in minute form,
yeah,
which I think is pretty neat.
amazing. Can you expand, Steve, on your you do you receive your information more through your mind's eye? Do you actually see it in physical form? What would you
I guess
say?
it depends. It depends how they're working with me. I mean, usually, let's say I was connecting with you
Mhm.
and I was bringing stuff through, they would impress my mind with the information. And like I said earlier, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, knowing, feeling, all of that. And
Right,
I'd verbalize it. Now, in some cases, I could be working and I might look at a person I'm working with and I see their mother behind them with her hand on their shoulders. But generally, that's something that they're impressing in my head,
in your
but it's sort
mind's
of
eye.
projected out there. Yeah. Or you might see somebody, they're putting a crown on the person's head, or they're giving them, handing them a shovel to start digging, or some flowers, or whatever it might be. That's how it works.
Yeah, this is, I think, for me, the clearer it gets, I guess, is seeing it in the mind's eye, and I always wonder, are we able to see it also physically? Is it something about our awakening, which is that the eternal if they are living amongst us as well because we are eternal beings, do you think there will be a point in time where we will actually be living together or I have a sense that right now, the more open I am to see and believe, the more I get to see and experience these wonders of experiencing spirit. I don't know, seeing beings. I feel like they're showing themselves more at this time. But I don't know if it's because they want us to become more aware or if ultimately we will all be just what like in the Garden of Eden, just all living eternally.
Well, they want to make you aware that they're around. And because you're getting into mediumship, they're trying to encourage you and say when you have those experiences, it encourages you and motivates you and inspires you to get even more involved in study and learn more.
Right.
And then when you're an old lady, you've been into it for decades and you'll be out helping all these people, you'll be really empowered. Can you imagine that when you're like 82 doing mediumship?
We've talked about this before. And the thing is, we do on the physical form as humans right now, like we all want to succeed. We all want to do well in what we do. I want to be good at what I do. And which is why I think I'm an internal student because I just want to be good at this and serve at my highest and best, just
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to do it for the right reasons, which are helping others, bringing other people closer to God and to understanding that they're a soul and to help them with the lessons that they're going through, their trials and their tribulations.
yeah.
And that's really, really, really important. And if you have that as a goal, that's why you're doing it. You'll be utilized to the extent that you're really pure and you put the energy into it. You'll be utilized to help people that way.
I feel like lately I've been asking God to just show me where I would best be of service
Yes.
or help me find my path to that I can fulfill my journey here or my calling or my purpose or my what my soul is but for God to put it in for me.
That's exactly what you want to do. Because, I mean, the thing too, which I think is important to emphasize as well, that just because someone is a medium and they might be really developed as a medium, maybe they really help a lot of people too. That doesn't necessarily make them spiritual or
Right.
make them more spiritual than someone else. Mediumship, it's really good for what it is. Think like the gifts of the spirit, but it's how you use those things and why you're using them, which are important. Just like you could be a really good artist and the artistic talent that kind of comes from God, the creativity and the artistic ability in one sense, but how you use it is really what matters and everything. So mediumship, just having some kind of mystic powers or mediumship ability doesn't make someone a better person. Someone can be a total jerk and be a medium
Yeah.
or not really have good morals or good ethics in terms of how they deal with people.
Yeah.
So one of the laws of mediumship is like attracts like. So if you're really working on yourself spiritually, and if you're also emotionally pretty well balanced, you're taking care of yourself, intellectually you're growing, you're going to attract similar minded types of spirits to work with you.
Mhm. Which is why it goes back to, again, what you were saying, where the letting go of the control, I feel
Yeah.
like you grow, and then you also meet on your path. It just goes together, and
Yeah. If you let things flow really, really, really harmoniously. But the free will is how we respond to different situations. We can't really we can contribute to the big picture, but we can't really control the big picture.
mm,
But then within our own lives, we can choose how we want to respond to things. And that's where the wisdom comes in because there's different ways to each situation is unique. And of course, the higher spirits will advise us along the most ideal, harmonious course of action with something, depending what it is, which doesn't mean it's like absolute, but their perspective, they can see things, how we're going to learn the most from it and what's going to help us. And they'll try to encourage us in that direction.
yeah.
So mediumship isn't something like fortune telling.
No. Yeah. I appreciate that greatly. I mean, with you speaking, I feel like so much healing is taking place. I'm grateful also for you opening up. That's another thing, is how much of the predictions and actually our ability to create our desired or how much our optimism allows for where the world is going if we were all truly, how much our belief system affects what the outcome is.
They can prophesize. I mean, the thing is usually if something is foretold, the reason for that, I mean, sometimes it's just to demonstrate powerful spirit. There's a higher
Mhm.
intelligence that's aware of things.
Mhm.
So that's oftentimes, other times it's done to encourage people along a particular line. If you say, hey, if you can keep on doing this, 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 and this in your life, most likely the result's going to be this in 6 months. That will encourage the person.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, there's hope for me. Maybe they really feel discouraged and they're depressed about things. But on the other hand, there's so many variables when it comes to things. So you can certainly have next week, you're going to eat pizza on Wednesday night. When it comes Wednesday, you have lasagna instead.
So,
So
because
it's
we have
really,
free will, we
yeah, we
don't.
have, other people have free will. It's not written in stone. So what really matters with information coming through from spirit, obviously they can prove continuity of life by evidential communications with recognizable individuals who you can identify. So that's one thing. But then part of it also is if you get spiritual guidance that can apply to things on a practical level too. That stuff isn't written in stone, but if you, in a general sense, if you follow it, it can help you and it can help the situations as opposed to just you're in your ego and you're doing all this stuff and dysfunctionally and maybe just completely make situations worse.
I wonder with prophecies, it could be, for example, I don't like speaking of the future because I do feel like we create we have free will, and
Yeah,
so
there's free
sometimes
will.
when a
That's true.
medium comes, for example, even for myself, and wants to share, for me, it can close off something because it puts an idea in my head. On the
Uh-huh.
other hand, I do see that perhaps I'm being shown potential of what could be. Like for me, it's a very fine line, but like, I also want to acknowledge if that kind of information does come through, if it can be helpful, right? Like you were saying.
It can be really helpful. I mean, the thing is what's most important is how, if we're growing, it's not just stuff on a superficial type of level. So the higher spirits, they're more concerned with helping us grow spiritually. And there are some situations someone might be going through that are really incredibly painful and difficult. Now they'll give you support, they'll give you love and strength, but you're still going to go through that.
Mm.
What's necessary for someone's soul growth, and maybe there's karmically, there's reactions there that they need to go through.
Yeah.
So you can't cheat the laws of God. There's like perfect justice, there's perfect order and everything. And
Yeah.
we mess it up when we get involved and try to control it all. The higher guides would want, if they do give you stuff that's going to happen in the future, it would most likely be stuff that does end up happening that way, most likely in most
Mm.
cases, just because it would give you encouragement. Because you'd say, "Oh, well, I was shown that 6 months ago or 3 years ago,"
Mm. Mm.
and then you'll have more confidence in yourself and trust in them as
Mm.
well.
Mm.
That's
Yeah. I mean, that's for that's how it started in any case, is just getting the kind of evidential information confirmed where it
but
grows your faith.
they're they're not all. I mean, they're all different mentalities. So, like with predictions, some have that type of skill, most don't. Not everyone's on a. You go hang out in LA. There's a lot of people there and go to the gutter. They're lying in it after they've drunk all this alcohol, and they're just really toxic and negative. They don't like themselves. They really need a lot of help. They wouldn't give you a lot of wisdom.
Mm.
And then you might have people who are really advanced. I mean, you have people very materialistic. You have people who are, like I
Yeah.
said, really toxic. So the spirit world's the same thing. So the higher spirits, they're not necessarily all knowing, but they're pretty together and they're genuine. They're very honest and everything. They're going to do their best. And then you definitely have like higher teachers who have more wisdom, who are above them, direct things. But the average communicator, like someone's mom comes through, doesn't mean she was that evolved at all when she was here. She might not have even been a very nice person in some cases. It just depends on the person. So it's always good to test the spirits and test the medium and don't just believe something. It's like in LA, a lot of people, why do they move to Los Angeles? Because they want to get involved in the entertainment industry. Maybe they want to be a screenwriter. I remember one time in LA, there's this one guy from Kansas I knew, and he was doing some he was like he was doing this telemarketing thing for this photography studio. And he was all dressed up. He had his hair multicolors and all new wave looking and stuff and hip. And he's from Kansas. Now he moved to LA because it was a really cool place to be. It wasn't boring like Kansas City or wherever he was from. So what's interesting though is most people, they go there and they're just one of 5,000 people wanting to be a screenwriter. And so they don't necessarily, or they don't end up being a famous actress. It's really hard. So they wash dishes or doing something. But what you can go into in Los Angeles, which is very lucrative, is channeling. And you can come up with some type of entity that speaks through you.
Mm.
And you can talk in a funny voice and tell people all this weird stuff. And they'll believe you. And they won't test to see if you're authentic or not.
Mm.
But I guess it beats waiting tables.
Yeah. That's where we have to really be careful when going or discerning the information and really finding, like, this goes back to the beginning of the conversation of knowing what is truth to you, or how something feels truthful and resonates with you, with your heart, um, and not putting all of the also in the hands of someone else. Like,
Yeah,
this
that's the whole
person told
thing.
me to.
The higher spirits, they won't they won't make decisions for us. They're not going to take away your free will. They're going to advise, very supportive, loving advice and everything. And we're the captains of our own ship, basically.
Yeah.
And mediumship, those are really, really, really good thing. And you can
Yeah.
really help a lot of people with it. But just always test them. Don't feed the medium. They shouldn't ask you all these questions. You don't want to tell them anything about yourself, just like you wouldn't want to feed animals at the zoo,
Right.
because that's not something you want to do. It's just why they have signs against it. And or if you go to Yellowstone Park or someplace, or Yosemite Park, do not feed the bears. The same thing with mediums. Don't feed the medium. Yeah. So test the spirits, test the medium, and because there's a lot of just deluded people out there, and there's fraudulent people too.
Yes.
In California, it's just filled with them.
Yes. Cool.
I've lived in California before,
Okay.
so I know what I'm talking about. I've worked there
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah.
And it's great because people tend to be really open to all this stuff. But then it can be very flaky too,
Yeah.
because they just get into this stuff and they don't question things. And people can be very gullible. But with mediumship, I teach a lot of classes I travel all over the place and work. And you're in my online courses. And I've got my YouTube channel. I've got both my books.
Books, yes, which I highly recommend, and I will
Those
say it.
books. I've got
No, I will
oh, I've
say
got them right here too. Mediumship
mhm,
Mastery, The
the
Ultimate
I
Guide,
we pulled
and then
out
I
the
also
same
have
one. Yes,
Mediumship Mastery 2.
yes, which I
You've got it too.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And
And I'm
I
working
also
on another
have
book
this
too.
book, which you recommended, Stephen, which,
Which
um,
oh, yeah, I use that for my class on Mondays,
yeah.
Cosmic Mediumship.
I think that, just even as a medium, it's always good to practice, just like a tennis player, like we were talking before. If you're, even if you're the best in the world, you still have to practice
Well,
and
you can't do mediumship for the wall. It's between people,
right,
not just talking to a blank wall.
right.
You need
Have
to, you're
to,
the intermediary between
yeah,
this. I mean, yes, they can directly communicate with you on a personal level, but being a medium is being an intermediary for them to work through to help people here,
yeah.
which is
The
pretty cool.
In terms of angels, if you don't mind, just for a moment, and just in general, do you feel that the reason, how for me it was one of the things that came through once was like chocolate is chocolate. We all agree that chocolate is chocolate because it looks a certain way and tastes a certain way as
Right,
humans
right.
here. And so I wonder, as I study as well, I have my own experience and I also receive the information my own way,
Uh-huh.
interpret it. But are there certain things, like, for instance, like Archangel Raphael? For me, when I first experienced that energy, I saw green, right? And then I realized that a lot of people experience that color. I wonder if there are certain truths in terms of the way we can experience the archangels, and also if you
Well,
could talk a
yeah, I mean,
little bit about
it's
them.
a way you can test the spirit world. So not just an archangel, but let's say you have a guide that comes through, and maybe that guide comes through more than one person. And usually guides will work with one person because it's an energetic type of connection that's built up over a period of time, the relationship.
Right.
But there are some people who might work with all sorts of people depending upon what the function is and everything. And potentially those individuals might present themselves the same way through a lot of different people,
Okay, thank
you
you.
know, and people might not know it. Like it's not something that's broadcast or it's being told to a lot of people. And then they end up coming through that way and everything. I mean, this is also true. Well, when it comes in the general sense with guides, like for example, someone describes, oh, you have this Native American Indian chief who's your guide, and his name's Chief Tomahawk Head or something. And you might just think, that's nuts, Chief Tomahawk Head. And then a year later, you're let's say you're on the other side of the country, you're in Massachusetts, and you go to some medium, and they're an artist, and they draw like this Native American, like this big tomahawk head,
Mm.
and they describe the same guide that came through this other medium. And then maybe you go somewhere else, and they bring through things from the same spirit. You see, so it's a way of. That's why it's good not to share when you receive information. Don't share it with a lot of other people because that's one way of testing spirit. It'll be validated through other mediums. Because just in general, a guide, how do you prove something like that or validate it? In most cases, you can't unless you get it through multiple people. Now, a relative you might, or another communicator, you might not know. But like I said, then you go talk to your husband, because, oh my God, that's my stepdad. And can validate the information that you
Right,
received.
I think it's easier to validate information that's from those who have passed over as opposed to, like,
Yeah.
spirit guides. It's just it's
You didn't necessarily know them at all. In most cases, they're people who are attracted to you or assigned to you. They choose to work with you for whatever the specific purpose is, and it's sort of like a personal relationship that develops with them over a period of years.
could you I can't remember because I don't go into this too much, but with spirit guides, if they were ever in human form as opposed to angels who were never in human
Well,
form, is that
usually, guys, it's just you've got certain skills or talents, and you kick the bucket, and maybe you still want to help people. You might be around those people and try to influence them, and you'd have skills, you qualities you'd be able to offer them based on what you've done in life.
okay.
So most, in a general sense, guides they have certain skills that maybe they did surgery when they were a physician, and they can influence someone doing healing to help people heal.
Yeah.
So
Right,
you want to test that stuff.
right.
And you can read stuff in a book or someone can say stuff and it might sound really profound, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's legitimate. I
And
always
so
wanted to
how
think
do
this.
you test it, Stephen? I think we'll end with this because I
Well,
think this is the greatest thing is how do we know what is true? People could have written plenty of books. And like I was saying, chocolate is chocolate. We all agree on a certain thing. How would,
well, there's a lot of, I mean, people are pretty gullible. So part of it's, like I said before, can you validate the information too? Now, the other thing, of course, is as you understand the process scientifically, how it works, and along with it, how you experience it, you're going to have a better idea of what it is and what it isn't. Simultaneous as you develop more, you're going to be able to tune into other people when they're working, and you'll be able to discern, okay, this person is really getting stuff and this person isn't. But just realize there's fake stuff, fraudulence that's deliberate, and then there's also like delusion. And there can even be things that are mixed where people get things and like they add stuff to it and they can't tell the difference, or they just exaggerate things deliberately because they want to make it sound or yeah. So just I think it's good to take things for what it is. If you read some kind of channel teachings and it just sounds whacked out, chances are it is. Even if it's legitimately comes from some spirit, it's still whacked out, even if it wasn't fake or delusion. So that's why it's good to really obviously test things, but just use your intelligence. Don't throw your intelligence out. God gave you intelligence for a reason.
okay.
Does that all make sense?
Totally. I'm very grateful to you because I don't know, like you said, a lot of it just feels truth and it feels in truth for me and in discerning and in really being clear. And I think that what makes a beautiful channel also like yourself is that it's a pure, there's something very clean and clear. And I think that's all we're just here to bring information through, even through conversation. I feel the energy, the heart, and the integrity in what you do.
Yeah,
So
man. Thank you. I'm really happy to be on your podcast.
yeah.
Thank all anyone who's listening to or watching this.
Yeah. I hope it's helpful. That really truly is the purpose of opening up the awareness and
Yeah, well, I'm happy to help anyone. I do a lot. Like I said, I teach a lot of classes
yeah.
and workshops all over, and I have my books, which are on Amazon, both my books, and
And when I do post this, I will link. I
put
mean,
all the
know that
links.
that's the
Yeah,
thing. I'll have the
cool.
link in the show notes. Like I'm excited that this will be true and just for people to be able to reach out and learn. You have many years of experience, and I think that goes to say too. Just like you go to a doctor and want to, you know, have someone who is just knows what they're doing and has studied over time. It's our way of growing. And I appreciate that message. For me, that's the biggest message today is to there's worth in the work. And that doesn't mean to say that you can't test and as you grow to still work through. Yes, I hope that when I'm 80 years old, like you said, Stephen,
You're
and
82.
82.
All right.
Uh,
Well,
Thank
well,
you
God
again
bless
so
you.
much. God bless you. Thank you.